Welcome everybody. This is Denny and Karl with GetWisdom, and we're going to do a video today with Karl channeling Creator. We call this Viewer Questions for Creator, and we've done 8 of these already. Starting back on the 27th of April, we did one, and we did one on June 10th. This is 2017, and then on August 8th we did one, and 26th of September. And then again on 17th of October, the 21st of November, and the 9th of January 2018. And the last time we did one was in March. So we're going to try to do these a little bit more frequently like we were doing in the latter part of 2017, because there's a really good way for us to stay in touch with everyone and get these questions answered. So this will be our 9th one that we've done, and we've kept records of them, and you can actually find them, I think, on the Get Wisdom website now. If not there, on the Wise is True website, where you can see all the questions that have already been asked, and there's the video link and a time date stamp, so you can go look them up and actually listen to the answers to the questions that have already been asked. So thanks again, Karl, for joining me. I really appreciate you doing these series with us now on Get Wisdom, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about this series, and maybe some of your insights around this series, and get us ready for what we're going to hear today, maybe.
Yeah, I'll be delighted to, and I'm so glad you're all watching, because that's why we're here. We learn from you. We learn from our own curiosity. I've been at this for years now and asking questions of the divine realm to satisfy my curiosity, first of all, and then to help my work in facilitating healing for people. And I also, as a scientist, I want to learn as much as I can about how things really work. And I want to figure everything out. That's just who I am. And it's a little perhaps overambitious, but if you don't aim high, your arrow will fall short, this sort of thing. So that's who I am and why I'm here. But mostly, this exact interview is to honor all of you, because these are questions from the group of people who work with us. And that's who I consider our followers, our supporters, our subscribers, the participants on our new website, the Get Wisdom Enterprise. We're in this together, and there's power in numbers, as we all know, and it's really more important than people appreciate. Because if everyone in the human family is all self-involved with their own doings, their own lives, and their immediate needs, we're all in different places. It's like our lives are all on a different page, and we're not working together. This is an opportunity to come together and make something special happen, and it is very special. We're penetrating the veil, and we're talking directly to the creator of all that is. This is something that doesn't happen very often. There are many who claim to do it, but there are few who have that reach and who are talked to, because it's got to be a mutual interest in what happens in the communication. This is divine work. It is divinely supported. And our intention is to bring in those things of greatest importance for humanity. Along the way, there may be some things more frivolous, more of entertainment value. There's nothing wrong with that. We have many dimensions. And sometimes a simple question about a mundane experience has great import and a depth of meaning and involvement with forces that before we asked, we would have been clueless about. So there are many profound things all around us we little understand yet. And every life is a living witness to this ongoing miracle. So we all have things to say. We all have things to report. What is your database? What is in your life you witnessed and experienced that you can share with us or ask about, and we'll look into it on your behalf and maybe help fill in some understanding about it. So there are many things that happen that are evidence the divine is real. So it doesn't get more direct than saying hello to God and getting an answer word for word. So this is what I do with my channeling. And it's a demonstration that the divine realm is there for us. We are a part of it, in fact. And they're always involved and within us and aware of everything that we do, everything we think, everything we say, everything we feel. Sorry about that. There are no real secrets except to us and what we're unaware of in the human level. But God is within each one of us. And I call it creator because it's a more generic term and it doesn't offend as many, because with the warring religions and so on, it gets loaded. And if you don't mention Allah and you mention God, then that can step on toes and vice versa. And we don't want to be seen as some religious fundamentalist outfit that is going to some kind of extremes because we're literally interpreting the Bible or whatever you. That isn't who we are. I like to get information from everywhere and mostly through direct experience. And as it turns out, the best way to learn is through intuition. This is what the divine realm will tell you about education, about learning, and about knowledge. What you gain intuitively, you typically get all of a piece. You don't get it in little bits and pieces. You get an understanding of what's important about it, and it comes in all fully formed. You may not know everything there is to know, but you know a good deal more than before you tuned into that information. This is how light beings learn, and this is a higher level capability, so it's precious. Everyone's got this intuitive ability, but that's what people are using when they do any kind of psychic reading, psychic explorations, remote viewing, mediumship, and so on. So I know most of the people watching are way ahead of me already, and you're all very metaphysically astute and all that. So I'm just trying to think about the big picture a bit, because I like to start from there always. And every time I go back around, I think of it in a little different way myself. So it's just my bias that this can kind of be useful.
Yeah.
Because now I have this very clear picture in my mind of all of us kind of in a circle, and we're all connected energetically. It's like our own World Wide Web, because we're, quite some distances, the people watching this very video. We can be all over the globe, in fact.
Yep.
And this is a consciousness that we're sharing, and an intuitive awareness of one another, and a divine link, and all of that. So this is better than the internet. This is, although that's part of the energy too. It's very practical and mundane now, but so we're wanting to push the frontiers, and it's through you guys we're doing it. So this is a recognition that you have things to say that can be important and will help others. If you have a question that you're wondering about, you can be sure there are hundreds to thousands of other people out there who maybe never thought of it and would be amazed at the answer that we might get, or have thought of it and didn't know where to find that or how to learn more about it.
Yeah. Well,
so,
for this set of questions we've got today, we have 11 questions, and I came across two. One that I came up with, and another one that was from our viewer that not in the U.S. And we're starting to broach a subject that we've been kind of steered away from for obvious reasons, with the idea that we might want to get into them with greater numbers involved in Get Wisdom. So we have a question about the Christ story, and we have a question about Islam. And there is a fundamentalist faction associated with both of those religions, and there's a great danger in offending people new to us especially. But I thought these questions were very clever insofar as that they didn't really broach the subject in potentially an inflammatory way or in a divisive way. I think they're questions in themselves that are going to evoke the kind of balanced answers that we typically get from Creator anyway. Creator seems to be very sensitive to the sensibilities of our wider audience, while keeping in mind the intent behind the questioner, who in this case is not Karl or I necessarily. They're from the viewers. And so we're kind of, the old analogy, peeling the onion. We're getting answers that are based on information that was given to us from earlier sessions. So the assumption here, and that I'm making in any case, is that we're more informed now, so we're ready for more complex and more revealing answers, with the idea that we can handle those answers given the information that's been given to us before. And if you watch the whole series of viewer questions for Creator, and along with the other series that we've done, you can see that's true. I don't really think there's any huge dramatic examples of that, but it's been very incremental, and you can really start to see where the information that we're getting is more concise, maybe more revealing, maybe a little bit to the point, as some of the answers that we got in the beginning. So I'm really looking forward to this one, and I'm kind of looking at the dates of the previous ones, and I'm kind of lamenting that we didn't fill in with a couple more of these prior. But we were busy, we're trying to get Wisdom going, getting the new website going, and then keep up with our roster. For a while there, I think we were doing 2 channeling videos a week, and we switched it to one per week. So we're only doing 4 per month now. So that may have contributed to why we hadn't, why we haven't done one of these since the 1st of March of this year. So Karl, if you have anything to add, let's do that now, and then we get started on these questions for Creator.
Well, only I think to point out, maybe as an example of what to look forward as we expand our reach here to encompass more and more subjects and more issues, that we're going to tackle the issue of religion to some extent, not to pick at it, not to critique and criticize, but to help to broach the divide and build bridges, because we need the religious folks as well as the more modern or more spiritual people who are not particularly practitioners of a traditional faith. But we need those folks too, because many of them are looking for something else, not to necessarily replace what they're doing, but to add. They want the growth. They want the expansion.
Or they may already have a prayer life that they would like to be more effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this with Creator, and we've gotten a big green light about this concept. And the idea is to help anyone and everyone. And why would we want to exclude the people who already believe in the Almighty from being a part of this? Because everyone who at least can do that is 90% there. It's much harder to deal with non-believers who just scoff at these things, and they typically don't believe in anything paranormal either. So, we're out of bullets then. We have nothing to appeal to them. So So you'll be seeing more of this because we're going to see to it. And I think it's an important thing. We have to have a way to help everyone, and especially do an outreach to the people who are already believers, but maybe they're complacent or they're just not aware there are other things going on. And they'll hear about it in some way, they'll come and check us out. And if at least we acknowledge their faith in some way, out of respect, it may give them a little comfort level. So it may offend someone else, but we can't be perfect, on one size fits all, and because we're gonna miss a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because they may want that particular flavor just to feel comfortable to be there. So we're not meaning anything deeper in any question you might hear today than that, to address the fact people care about their religious knowledge and their ideologies, their religious traditions, and the things that they're based on.
Right.
And they're very worthy of research and scholarship. And we're in a perfect position to do a lot of those things. But we do have to tread carefully. So we're hoping mightily to not cause pain to anyone or difficulty as we go about this, but hopefully come through with a message where it's really all okay.
Yeah.
You really can't go wrong with God, with the Almighty, with Allah. You are in good hands, and if you cling to that and keep that as your point of focus, everything else is really not so important.
And then, so if there's nothing else, Karl, let's go ahead and get started.
All right. This is Creator speaking.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Was the Christ story constructed to resemble the ancient myth of Mithra by the Anunnaki, or through their influence? Did they do it in order to make us believe he never existed, and to lose interest in his teachings? Was it a clever maneuver to promote atheism?
Indeed, this hits a big, big nail directly on the head. The question is clever, the strategy is clever, the consequences were cleverly contrived and highly effective, at least in some quarters, to deflate things in many settings. One must keep in mind that everything in scriptures across the board, regardless of the origin, regardless of the religion, all have been altered to some extent. There are very ancient texts whose lineage is very certain, and those manuscripts from antiquity and tablets are an authentic representation of what was recorded at those points in time. That does not mean, however, that everything recorded in those olden times was accurate as transcribed. The distortions have crept in on many levels from many sources at many points in time, all through history. There are errors of recollection, errors of transcription, errors of translation from language to language. Many critical historical events depicted in the scriptures were secondhand information and have been modified on their way to being entered in the archives, now considered holy writings. All such writings were done through the eyes and minds and hands of humans. all are accordingly subject to some distortion, and in some cases, a deliberate rewriting of actual events and a deliberate misconception entering into the picture as a consequence. The stories of the great prophets are not fully accurate. It is that simple. Many things have been altered. The idea of beings with special access to the divine, who are a spokesperson for time to help people be raised up and return to a focus on the divine, all served a valuable role and are historically true and valid in their existence as physical beings with a divine mission. This has been undertaken many, many times. The reality of your world is that every physical human on the planet, regardless of their station in life, their life experience, their knowledge, their location, their career, their awareness of anything beyond themselves, is an underrepresentation of the basic reality. All are a part of Creator. All are here on a divine mission. The problem enters in with the ability to make a direct connection that has been compromised. So very few can hear the divine voice directly. All are under a veil of suppression. This has been true all through recorded history, even in biblical times. Many of the early messengers had corrupted information. This is always a factor. So there were periods of time when people were hearing divine messages quite accurately, but then became corrupted in a way to be misdirected. So there have been very active campaigns to create confusion, to distort messages, and to indirectly raise doubts and to cast aspersions when possible on the possibility of the reality of the divine shining forth. They have taken their toll on the level of credibility, especially as viewed through the modern eyes and ears. It is difficult to ascribe holy origin to many of the teachings at this point because they are dark in some way. This is not true divine message when it offends the heart and is an extinguisher of love. This is a corruption. So we do not wish to be the source of criticism and a vetting of every sentence and every purported holy document. This is a prescription for getting a war going, which has happened all too often heretofore. So we prefer to move forward from this point rather than go backward and conduct an autopsy of history and point fingers at those who faltered, who may have been corrupted and been promoting a mixed agenda in some fashion, which almost always is done unwittingly. And this is true today of all those who purport to promote positive messages for human betterment and the enlightenment of humanity. Most individuals are being misdirected, misled, misguided, misinformed, and they are not an accurate spokesperson nor leader in the most important respect, which is whether or not they are focused on truth and the divine path. So those who are religious have the clearest focus of the divine mission. All who promote enlightenment, ascension, and a transition of humanity into higher realms are missing the point. They are being misguided into wanting the picnic without buying the produce, without tilling the fields, planting the seeds, fostering and nurturing the growth of ideas, and fully understanding what brought the food to the table, and knowing that this was necessary for the banquet to happen. We credit all with faith. The belief in the divine is precious, and it is always honored and is always a blessing. If there are ways it is distorted and corrupted in some fashion with negativity, we are not happy for those influenced in such a way, but we do understand how this came to be. And we are always wanting to help rescue people from themselves when they are in a contest between the light and the dark, even in describing their faith. This needs to be dealt with. And the first order of business is to realize that what is sacred is a very ill-defined and unprovable concept. And we attempted to make this clear by noting that even the holiest of documents and writings were created in a time and place and situation of great uncertainty, great confusion, little authoritative information, and people were doing the best they could to make records of what transpired. So we would say that the information that is working against those who bring forth the message of love are being influenced by a corrupting source. Those who promote only love to the exclusion of reason and practical awareness of difficulties are similarly being corrupted. This makes things quite challenging to know who is true, who is false, who can lay claim to divine prophecy, who might be misguided. When one is in the throes of a calamity, with civilization falling apart, society in disarray, people engaged in all manner of evil doings, to preach a sermon about sweetness and light would be completely inappropriate. And the emotions of anger and wrath appearing at such a time by a human spokesperson for the light can be easily explained and understood with sympathy and loving compassion as having a human moment in a dire circumstance. All of these things will happen. They have in the past and will again when there are pressures on society. So we would say what is bringing forth love and the truth of the divine, but with messages of obligation and responsibility, knowing that each person is responsible for their conduct and everything they do and do not do matters to their personal future and the future of humanity. All of these ideas are on track and in divine alignment. What departs is increasingly suspect. You must learn to develop your own discernment. Listen to your heart. Look for divine truth, and you will find it.
Okay, thank you. Is it true that the current Queen of England is a descendant of Islam's Prophet Muhammad?
This, in fact, is true. This is part of the lineal chain of descendants. This has no greater meaning, however. The prophet was a living, breathing human being, and there were progeny. So the biology will flow from there, and the chain of descendants will grow and will branch further, and through increased intermixing become more and more distant from the actual genetic contribution from the very beginning. So what we would want to say about this is to not overinterpret the significance, other than to make the point: you are all in a family to begin with. And so what you look like and where you come from is of little consequence beyond this basic reality that you all come from the same place and you are all going to the same place. You have different lineal descendants and forebears as a result of biology, but with the intermixing, this has little consequence except when there is a particular focus on the genes and a desire to constrain the intermixing and thereby dilution of a particular complement of genetic characteristics. This has been prized in various ways at various times by particular cultures wanting to have a preservation of their heritage in this way, often not understanding the means of inheritance, but knowing that it had importance. What we would tell you is this is a human notion and a human desire to preserve a sense of family, a sense of belonging, and a sense of familiarity, and an appreciation of the strengths attained already within the culture, and a desire to maintain it and prevent something causing a reduction or bringing an unwanted influence of some kind that would upset tradition, upset accepted practice, and then would cause turmoil and disarray. This happens again and again through little understanding of accepting those with differences so that interactions can go smoothly and people accepted as people and looking beyond the surface. This is still an issue today with the problem of immigration and the breaking down of barriers through the advent of air travel and freedom of movement allowed by most governments. So there is a new awakening in appreciation for the interconnection of things. What we would say is what matters the most is the individual soul present within the physical form. It is the soul origin and its history that is the very most important source of influence on what happens for and with and to that individual being. The ancestral lineage has an influence, but it is secondary to other aspects of that soul. Souls come and go. They have a natural soul collective in the moment, with rich history that may go back through dozens to hundreds of lifetimes, lived in close proximity again and again among and with one another. But there is quite an intermixing as well. So one can never be sure where one ends up in a particular family, to what degree they have prior doings with others in that group, because they will not see it in this way and will not appreciate they may be a stranger among strangers. But this is a message intended to explain that the genealogy, while interesting and making the point you do come from somewhere historically, and those influences are very much real and still important, they are not the be-all and end-all that determine character and other characteristics of the individual. What matters most is what comes from the soul. Regardless of where and when you may have been in the past, the descendancy of biology is only the physical chain in linking the offspring to those who were contributing as parents to that occurrence. The soul inhabiting each and every child and each and every family going down through time will vary. It is not the same individual. So the soul in the royal figure you mentioned is not necessarily the same soul involved earlier in that family tree. So this is a very superficial connection linking the queen to Muhammad. And so this does not impart any special provenance and any special attributes. But keep in mind, both figures are divine because all flows from Creator. Every human being is divine, each in their own way, a special being created to have a soul reflecting a unique set of attributes. This is what is most important to consider. There are too many ways humans rank one another by status, usually based on materialist criteria, and none of that matters. What matters is truly how one is doing in expressing their soul, whether this is being done effectively, whether it is helping or hurting them, helping or hurting others around them. That is what matters.
Okay, thank you. Is it scientifically known, or it is scientifically known, that only 15% of humans carry what is known as Rh negative factor in their blood? Where does this Rh negative factor come from?